your name on. Wow.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to call order to the March Park and Rec Atherton meeting. Sally, will you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Eisner.
Here.
E.
Here.
Kubal. She was gonna attend via Zoom, but I don't see her. Merrill.
Here.
Robertson.
Here.
Robinson.
Second.
I'm here twice.
No. Robertson and then Robinson and then Roser.
I'm here by Zoom.
Roser's on Zoom, but he won't be able to make any votes tonight,
But he's allowed to comment.
but he's allowed to comment.
Okay, that's fine.
And later in the meeting, we can go over the rules again.
Love to. Public comments. Are there any public comments? Where did he left, I guess. No, seeing no public comments. Why don't we move to approval of minutes? Are there any corrections or anything else for the last minutes from February?
I made the edits that yourself and Walt made,
Yeah.
and those are all the edits I got.
Good.
So do you want, yeah.
If there's nothing, do I have a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
In favor.
Unanimously passed. Let's move on to introduction of our new facilities manager, Mr. Enochson.
Welcome.
Good evening. Yeah, as Sally says, we're partnering together, and eventually I'm going to be taking over Holbrook Palmer Park as well as the buildings that are on the park and help manage the maintenance for all the buildings there. Just recently we were doing a walkthrough at the main house and we noticed that the water heater was leaking. Turns out it was about 25 years old. So it was due for a replacement. And we were lucky to find a reasonably priced plumber, and they brought it up to code, and we actually had it installed. And there's a few minor hiccups. We got to drain a couple of the old faucets. We think some gravel got in there, but we're making sure that. But at least now we have hot water, so they can run. You know, if they have any catering events, you know, we can wash dishes and things like that. But I've been here since January 30th, working with Robert. He's been my mentor and training me. And then Steven Tyler was training me also. He was previously here. Been doing a lot of work with MCE, getting to know their routine as well as Brightview. My background is in commercial facilities maintenance. I spent 28 years in biotech as a facilities person, working my way up the ladder. And then I had my own business the last 5 years. We ended up closing it for multiple reasons. And then this opportunity came up, and I'm very lucky to be working for the town of Atherton. I'm very happy to be here.
Welcome. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Could you comment a little about your experience with facilities that have flora on them, like the park, and how to supervise what garden landscapers do, things like that?
Well, I would be partnering with Sally to learn most of that, but I did, in my previous experiences, work with a lot of rose growers. on heritage roses as well as some of the local current roses. So I did some of that in the Central Valley when I was younger. I would service the equipment that would actually take the plants out of the ground, the rose bushes, and then I got to know all the maintenance workers as well as the owners of the rose growing facilities. So from that respect, I've had a little bit of experience, but I'm no expert on gardening by no means.
And how long will you work with Sally, or how long will Sally work with you?
We don't really have.
It's unknown.
Pardon me?
It's unknown. There's no final date when it will be fully transferred. So we're still working as a team right now. And I don't know when it will transfer over, but eventually Tony will be taking over Park and Rec. I just don't know when that will be. And yeah, so far we're working well as a team.
Are you aware of the background of the problems we had with the landscaper at Holbrook Palmer, and how we had to let that one go, or didn't want that one again, had to get a new one, and the problems we've had? Frank and I are part of the Holbrook Palmer Foundation.
Okay.
And we've paid the foundation, spent a great deal of money to do various things in the park, the most recent being the event garden, which unfortunately went to pot. And our money, much of it went down the tube that way. So we're very interested in that. You hope you'll find out that there is now a proposal to reconstruct and redo part of that. But from our perspective, and mine, I think on this committee too, very important that you become very familiar with what the landscape gardeners are doing there, and so that you can be the interface with us. Sally's done a wonderful job doing that. But her background's a little different than yours, it sounds like.
Yes.
So if you could learn that along the way, that'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely, I will. And I will try to absorb as much out of her brain as possible. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I am familiar. She went over the drainage problems with me. And then she also showed me the areas where the flora and fauna was more successful compared to the other section, which had some decay.
Right.
Yeah, so we kind of just breached that subject. So we will continue that for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to our regular agenda, 5A, tennis program areas for the Park and Rec Committee to consider for review. Do you want me to handle this, Sally?
I'll let you take it over since it's your item.
Sure.
Yes.
So since we were looking at pickleball, and part of that evaluation also is that, you know, it involves the tennis program and such, and wanted to have this committee take a look at both since we're looking at pickleball, we might as well look at tennis too, see how we can improve the program for the current key holders and the general community, and things we might want to do for Michael, or ask Michael to do differently that might be beneficial for our key holders. So the purpose of this agenda item is not to really get into the details of what we might want to change, but what do we want to ask of staff and of Michael when we have this in the next year? So things like, do we want to ensure that our key holders have access to, say, the hard court specifically? Is there 2 courts available? And then if so, then we have to work with Michael to figure out, you know, exactly how much to let them, how much he has to adjust to be able to accommodate that. Also, whether we should look at how much Michael pays Atherton in order to be the tennis provider, because I think it's been $40,000 a year for the last 9 years.
It's budgeted that he will be paying $58,000 if you look at the budget.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So that's interesting. I think that was redone, and that was explored in great detail, I
Okay.
believe, by the council when they renewed this.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, good to explore this.
Yeah. So
But-
I just want to ensure that was the case, because I thought it was 40,000, but if it's 58,000,
The agreement said 40,000 and 15,000 every time it was renewed.
Okay.
for another 3 years.
Okay.
So
I believe it's, I don't actually, I think we should check the language on that. I think the 15,000 is a one-time investment every 3 years.
right, it
I
is.
don't think that is so that equates to about $5,000 a year if every 3 years that happens. So we should just look at the terminology and the language.
I'm not even sure, Noah, that comes into play. I don't know where this 58,000 comes from, but
So maybe we just ask staff to confirm, if not today, then, you know,
yeah.
in the future, just what is the exact amount of, since there's some unknown, it seems like. Because I thought it was 40,000 that it was, but
Not what the budget says. It's right in our documents today.
the contract with Player Capital, how
Yeah.
much does Player Capital pay Atherton?
They pay the same amount every month. Nothing has changed in the amount that they pay.
Since in years, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
many years. Yes.
Oh, it is over, okay.
I think we'd like to really make sure of this because I looked back at an old agreement
Yeah.
at some point, and it said there was a $15,000 if it's renewed every 3 years. It wasn't. It was not that they would pay the town, they would make an investment in something, and I don't know what those things are, so I'd love to understand what Player Capital has done. I mean, unless they've really paid the town 15 every 3 years. I'd like to actually, I think that's 40,000.
So they pay
Yeah.
the town 40,000.
Right.
Right, that's what
That's
what I
what we
thought.
know, but there was also at some point, there was a $15,000 something. But should have been an investment. If we could go look back at some of the old contracts and just ask Michael, what is these?
Revenue for this year is 40,000 from Player Capital, 18,300 from
Yeah.
tennis fees.
Oh,
I don't think anyone's disagreeing. I think if we look back at the,
Agreement on looking at the budget.
yeah,
That's what the number-
And that's where the 58 comes from.
Okay.
For
yeah,
revenue.
that makes
I think though, there is something about a $15,000 investment.
I think that was in the renewal of the 3 years in the original contract.
Okay.
Those 2 3-year terms are done. They expired
Okay, so what
a
is,
year ago.
So,
And that's when this new contract was entered into, or maybe 2 years, because this one is a 2-year contract, which
Yeah,
I
this
believe
one-
expires this year,
yeah, it expires on
subject
September
to 1-year
26th.
renewals for the next 2 years following.
another question I'd like to explore, along the lines of, because I know other towns have done this, in a different kind of arrangement around revenue share. Based on, I suspect that having known what lessons cost, and how, labor also has increased. I'm guessing over 9 years, Player Capital's fees have increased to our residents and other users. So I'd like to see if maybe it makes sense to do a revenue share agreement as opposed to a fixed number. We should just be looking at what is the optimal thing for the town.
Okay, we can consider that idea. I mean, my own personal take on it is it can be complicated and how much effort it is, whether we just say flat rate and just it keeps it simple. But we can talk about it, yeah.
On my personal comment is, we entered into agreement. This town has an agreement for 4 years. If you want it, we'd have to cancel, we have to refuse to renew, essentially terminate the contract this year after having led him along or negotiated not too long ago for this new 4-year term. We could do it, but again, we'd have to cancel and start all over again. And to me, that just doesn't sound like it's realistic. In 2 years, sure, look at it again. But I think that'd be unfair to him and doesn't make any sense.
The contract is expiring in September this year, but it can be renewed in 1-year terms, an
Right.
additional 1-year term. So
Yes,
it's by mutual agreement.
that's
The
right.
town has to agree as well as Michael.
That's
has to
right.
agree. So I would say we should let's discuss all the issues around, or all the concerns around tennis. And then, that's certainly a concern. And then if we decide, well, it's not worth it, then we won't pursue it, but if we have a recommendation for council, then we'll make the recommendation and
Sure.
because we haven't decided anything.
I agree on I'd love to know exactly how we're gonna manage the 6 courts. I'd also, like to understand, I mean, I think we all know that the fences, the gates, the locks have not worked at different points. I mean, over a year ago, why wasn't this brought to town? Or if it was, why wasn't it solved? You know, if we're putting keys and why aren't we addressing it? Is that the job? Should we expect that out of whoever's managing the courts or not? Or is that a maintenance issue? I don't know, but I want that. I'd love to.
So are the keys broken or you can't
know
open
the fence, you could
You
just
can
reach
reach
in.
through it.
So that repair there was a temporary repair done on that. We will definitely permanently fix that. But I think one of the issues too is that people just leave the fences.
Open. Yeah.
But yeah, we're aware of the broken fence, and a temporary was done on that. So people can't reach around now to do it.
Go ahead, Rick.
So the budget for the last 3 years has been approximately $50,000 of revenue, and expenses were 2021, $22,000, 21, 22, $197,500, and 22, 23, $117,500.
That's with expenses.
Repainting the tennis gate. There's nothing specific in here about repairing fence.
It could just be a maintenance.
Sally, is that large budget the last 2 years because of the resurfacing of the course?
Yes.
Yeah. Which the town is obligated.
In the 21-22 expense, which was quite large, almost $200,000, was rebuilding that whole little seating area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Little cover.
Yeah.
So yeah, one thing I wanted to have a discussion with is about the sharing of courts between Player Capital and our key holders. Because some key holders have come to me and said they've had trouble getting open court times during late afternoons, once in a while on weekends. So if we could figure out, and they prefer the hard courts versus the clay courts. So, you know, if we can say, hey, Michael, Player Capital, can you, the 4 courts, if you're entitled to take 4 courts, have one of them be the clay court and then the other 2 be hard courts. I think our key holders would prefer that.
Bob Roser, could you
Yes.
comment on that? My impression was those 2 hard courts are always available to key holders. Can you
2.
comment on that point?
Yeah, two courts available to key holders during the week. And on Saturday, 3 courts, hard courts are available to key holders during the weekend.
Are those the hard courts or specifically?
They're hard courts in both cases.
Okay.
So I just like to, I mean, I'm looking at the system for tomorrow, and Player Capital has reserved about 4 hours of time on Port 2. So let's bring Michael in and have an understanding of why. Because right now, if I'm a member of the public with a key, I can't find a court between the hours of 3 and 6 p.m. and 10 a.m. and noon.
Oh, I mean, all the courts are taken?
Yeah, well, so you can say.
Okay, these are, okay, so this closed due to weather, clay.
Oh, that's
okay.
clay.
Okay.
We know clay's on, but these are the
Oh,
two.
yeah,
these
oh,
are
I
the two
see,
hard
because the
courts.
hard courts, yeah, he's.
So
okay.
that's what, rather than, these are questions that we'd like Michael as Player Capital to address, and that's all I think we should do. I don't think we should answer and hold back questions because we think we know the answer. I'd love to hear it directly from Michael.
Yeah, and if that's been recorded somewhere where it's the weekends, the residents get, or the key holders get 3 courts, and then during the week it's 2 courts. I'm not sure it's spelled out in the contract, so maybe it's somewhere else in some other terms. So that, you know, they know what they're buying, right? When they get the key, because it's, I saw it in the contract where it said you get 3 on Saturdays, but it had a stipulation after Michael sets up the website, then it doesn't specify what is the split between residents.
Right, and there's no update to that.
Oh, there isn't, okay.
Right.
So it's not really been memorialized anywhere.
No, so in the contract, we should probably specify what it's going to be,
Yeah.
what it's gonna be. And also after we reviewed it, we might want to change it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that original contract in any way still binding?
Yeah, I mean, all the information on that original contract is binding, especially all the responsibilities. They have all the responsibilities we have. That's all binding.
The new contracts are kind of
Just amendments.
very short amendments, so.
Okay.
So
Is the original contract in this packet or no?
It should be.
yeah, this long thing, I think, is the original contract. Yeah, this looks like the original.
I don't know if
Says
this is-
2014, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, let's see if the amendment. Yeah, this is the agreement, or this is an update.
But I don't see that clause that you and Sally were talking about.
Oh,
About the website.
Oh, I'll find it. It's hard to find. But I'll try to find it.
I think there's a different agreement.
I've seen it before.
I've seen it
I have
too.
a
just
copy of
don't
it.
think it's in this one.
Oh, that's what, yeah, okay. Yeah, but I know it exists in some form, so,
Yeah.
okay.
I'd also like to understand if there's any interest in some kind of tournament that you may, I know a lot of towns do little tournaments. Is there something that he might want to consider a plan for going forward?
Okay, we can ask him.
So Michael will be coming to the next meeting because he's gonna come anyway for his review. So these are all great questions for him for next month.
Okay, we can, yep. And then we'll agendize it so that, you know, if any key holders want to provide their comments, they'll be included as well. Okay, so I guess what I'll do, I'll work with you, Sally, to kind of put together a report and kind of the key things we'll be kind of asking questions about and exploring that. Or with Tony, whoever will be our park manager next month. Is there any other comments on this item that we want to include? Anything from Bob, anything from the public?
I think that the courts will have to be discussed with Michael. There are many players that have keys and players in player capital that have the court reserved that they don't use it. And that is a part of the issue.
Okay.
Because many times I've walked up and been able to use a court that had a key holder that had reserved the court, decided not to show up. And so I just took the court.
Is it an important problem that you want to see if we can figure out something to fix that?
I don't know how you fix it. I guess you have to somehow get the person to take his name off the court when he puts a reversion, the name in. When he decides not to use it, he should say, "Oh, I'm not going to use it." What normally happens is he just remains there and it stays.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Why don't we think about that? Okay. Why don't we move on to the next item?
So the next item is reviewing the capital improvement projects. So I included the capital improvement projects for the park for 2022 through 2027, which includes the circulation plan that will be going out to bid soon because it will be at the next council meeting. That will be going to the regular council meeting this month for them to approve it to go out to bid. So that's the update on circulation. Another capital improvement project is fencing improvements along Watkins Avenue. So we're supposed to be getting new fencing along the street. There's no update on that yet. Parking lot repairs. I think I explained this at the last meeting. That will just be to repave some areas of the parking lot. And then the general assessment miscellaneous repairs will be things that we haven't gone to in the park. And then if you go on to the back side of that, you'll see a sheet that says recommendation summary in your packet. It's behind that first page. So these were all of the projects that were part of the park master plan. So some of these we've completed and some of these have not. In past years, Park and Rec would prioritize some of the future projects that could be future capital improvement projects. So some of the items that we haven't completed are the rain garden, the amphitheater, and an arboretum meadow. Sometimes we do these projects and sometimes we don't. As part of the park master plan, there was the off-leash dog area, but then that has been taken out of the park master plan. So I don't know if you have any feedback for me for future projects. But these are all the items that were part of the park master plan. Do you all have a copy of the park master plan? Okay, I'm just making sure you have it so you can reference it at another time. Okay.
But I mean, you have the page.
Yeah, this is an important page, yeah.
Yeah. As part of the general assessment, will the oak tree be fenced off?
Yeah, so I had MCE out today to get another quote, a second quote, and then I contacted a third company today for a third quote, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
And we, depending on that cost, we might include the Watkins Avenue. We might include both of the fencing projects together.
Okay.
But we don't know yet.
But it will be this fiscal year where?
Yes, it will be this fiscal year,
Okay.
yes. Oh, and I wanted to, I can give you an update now just because I'm thinking about it, but yes, we did have to close down the playground last week. The playground structure, because it was found to have some issues. So we're in the process of getting quotes for the parts or getting quotes for a new structure.
What were the issues?
So the posts for the playground, they have rot. So you can't see the rot because it's underneath all of the mulch in the soil. But it was found that those posts have rot. Most of them do because in the playground, we know there's poor drainage. Mm-hmm. And with all of the storms, it's rotted even more. It was found that this structure is still structurally stable, but we don't want to have it open anyway because now we're on notice for this issue. So the playground is more than 20 years old. The play structure. So we're not sure. We're going to look at the cost of the replacements, which could be about $15,000 compared to a new structure, which would be around $25,000. But with the new structure, you would need a new foundation, which could be another $10,000 plus install, which could be another $10,000. So we're looking at 45 versus 15, but it's how the council would want to move forward with doing that.
Okay. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, so we had our initial budget review today at the study session. And one of the things that came out, which frankly was kind of surprising, is that the amount of free cash, that is cash that isn't subject to reserves, and we could change it. So the amount of free cash is over the next 5 years projected to grow from $6.775 million this year to $31.5 million in 5 years. And therefore, the council is going to be looking at different programs that it would want to do. And there's lots of programs, right? I mean, there basically is what kind of programs the council interested in doing the work that we call the last rest. And I'm sure will include some reserves, like there's no facilities reserve for replacing this center that we just built, or for replacing any of the buildings in Old Palm Park. Those being the two most substantial, those are the two only properties we kind of have. And I anticipate that there'll be some dollar amount put together probably for each of those. I don't know. Right now, there's not. There's $500,000 for the facility that's been on the books for 10 years, but hasn't changed. But that's a lot of money that the town will have. So I would recommend that Park and Rec look at what kind of substantial capital projects you think need to occur in the park. And we do a capital project estimates on a 5-year basis. The first year is the only one that really counts because that's the one that we budget. Anything else is sort of future projections, like Sally said, like the amphitheater and the rain garden. Yeah. Those things which have been on the books because they're in the master plan but have never gotten budgeted, and I don't anticipate it they'll be budgeted in the next year. But there are things that I think could be budgeted in the next year. Maybe like replacing the children's play equipment. Yeah. That gets heavily used. Yeah. And it's old. And I thought we had a very successful replacement of the 4 exercise stations that we've got around the park. And I could imagine that there would definitely be support for a real serious replacement of the children's play area and the equipment on it. And they're for a long time replacing the asphalt walkway around the park with a DG walkway has been discussed. It's never been budgeted, but I think that the current budget covers some in this new circulation plan, right?
The current budget covers $50,000 for the pathway, which will just pay for, I just met MCE out there today. It will just go from the pedestrian bridge to the front of the park. That will be $50,000. That one strip, and they're going to refurbish the part that's already there. It has a lot of low spots, it's not safe. So they're going to redo that whole area, and that will be around the $50,000 that we budgeted. But eventually we will have to budget for each section of the asphalt pathway. Yeah.
And I know one other thing that isn't directly in the park, but I'm certain will come up in the council discussion of the capital improvement projects is the walkway along Watkins that's outside of the park that goes from Station Lane, essentially from where the SFPUC pipe crosses under Watkins to I think it goes all the way down to Middlefield. Yeah. So that walkway, that's an asphalt walkway, is a total disaster. Yeah. And it's got a curve on it. It's a very steep curve. And if you're a kid on a bicycle, first of all, you can't ride on the walkway because there's not room. And if you're on the road, there's no room at the park near you. And if you hit that curve, you're likely to either fall over into the walkway or to veer off of it into a car. So in my opinion, that's dangerous, and we will be allocating whatever it costs to replace it and the walkway. I don't think that's necessarily a Park and Rec issue, but just so you know, that's a substantial capital cost that will help improve the park. And it is consistent. Doing that, in my opinion, is totally consistent with what you have approved in terms of the entrance of the exit change with the circulation plan. Because they're putting a new entrance into the park, and they're changing the curb issue and what you walk on. I think it will be concrete coming into the park. So I think thinking ahead about capital improvement project for the benefit of the park is the right thing for the community to suggest.
I walk that sidewalk and I want protection from the cars, which is what that curb's supposed to do. So it'd be interesting to see what the substitute would be. Those cars come down there very fast, as we know.
Well, it's 25 miles an hour, but you know, they.
Yeah, no, that's right. In fact, if you had to take the study before you could do tickets, I think you'd probably find the average is more like 35. But anyway, yeah, so I think those are great suggestions. I think we ought to do that. There's kind of a compromise there between how we get that. Not a lot of room there. I mean, one fix would have to be, I think, paving over the creek.
That was decided,
Well,
yeah, it was decided before we couldn't do that, right?
And,
Yeah.
well, it's doable. I mean,
we do it on Marsh.
Get a permit
Yeah.
to do it from the state fishing game. We had so much problem with state fishing game permitting the replacement of the channel.
Marsh
from
Road.
Marsh Road down where it comes 4 lanes rather than 2 lanes.
Yeah.
And that was caving in, right? I mean, literally it was caving in. It was dangerous.
Yeah.
I see.
So I think the likelihood of covering that channel is somewhere between 0 and 0.
Have we ever, I talked about sound wall for along that train line? I assume that's very expensive, but I mean, if we're talking,
No, never
That's a good
discussed.
idea.
I mean, I would certainly improve the experience inside the park, although the view may, well, I don't know what people think about the view, but it is loud as it goes.
What will happen is that there will no longer be a horn.
Yeah, right.
That will change this.
Oh, okay.
So you'll still hear the train, but the horn is the loudest thing. And that will be eliminated this year.
Right.
There will be,
Even though they have to blow when they go over
You have to
across.
blow within a quarter mile of a crossing unless the crossing has been deemed to be safe and the jurisdiction has declared a no,
Quiet zone.
Low noise, quiet zone.
Which we did on the one intersection right here.
And which
That-
we will do this year as soon as the quad gates are put in.
Yeah.
Which they will be done this year.
Okay.
I will say there is a concern that if, even though they're not supposed to blow the horns, they still can if they sense some danger. And some engineers will blow their horns anyway. The sound reflects off the wall into Atherton Homes, into Watkins.
Yeah,
and-
it may be a dumb idea. I just wanted to bring it up. I have no idea. I just, if I was within the park, I'd probably like it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, as an example, when they put the sound walls up on Bay Shore 30 years ago or whatever, I never heard cars in my backyard at all until the sound walls are built. And then certain times of day, you can hear them like crazy. So,
All
don't
the
know.
way from Bay Shore.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we never heard them before.
Right. Redirected it.
They redirected.
I just wanted to let you know that Trisha's on the Zoom now, if she has any.
Hi.
questions. Hi.
So I don't know if we all wanted to discuss these projects now, or it's, Rick's told us a lot and it's kind of like, you said, was it 31 million? Rick, was it 31?
In 5 years,
Over the 5 years.
in 5 years.
Okay.
That includes the repayment of our loan for this center, which is 5 million, but I doubt it will be paid in 50%.
Yeah, the 31's not cumulative, is it? It's that year we would generate 31, the 5th year. Okay.
Okay, that makes more sense.
It's taking the 6 million each year and accumulating it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the recommendation summary, is this stuff that's been done, or is that what you want guidance on? Ira?
So this is just a list of all the projects that are in the park master plan. So for example, some of these we've done, like we created the turnaround at the pavilion parking lot. The circulation plan is on here, which we will complete. We updated the pavilion kitchen, which is on here. So, I guess if you could take a look at this and maybe at the next meeting or at a future meeting, if Alex wants, we can discuss, some of the projects that haven't gone done here, and also Rick's idea of making recommendations of other capital improvement projects that we could use the money on.
Sally, why does not the carriage house appeared on here?
It has just efforts to assess costs for upgrades.
Yeah, it's the one that says
To be determined. Yeah.
And that's still to be determined.
But we did do some work, didn't we, years ago on getting at least a number that we could do. We had an architect, remember, come in and do that.
Yeah, but
Because that seems to me
That
to
was
be the
10
biggest
years ago.
structure that we could work on in the park.
Well, the last time we did this just for the bathroom remodel, the cost for the architect was as much as our budget.
Yeah.
So we kind of dropped that for now. I know Robert will want to take it on again, but for now, and maybe with Tony here now, they can take it on again. But that's something that we can discuss. The budget's coming up. I have to do it in the next week. Review the park budget, so maybe that's something I can talk to Robert Barron about.
Yeah.
Having that budget be a little bit more. We chose not to because it was too expensive,
For the bathroom, you mean?
just for the bathroom.
yeah.
So not touching anything else in the carriage house.
Just out of curiosity, what are the other upgrades that you're,
I'm not sure what the other upgrades are.
because I mean.
This is
whole
the only
structure-
thing I've known of.
You mean just for the carriage house or?
I think there was talk at some point of redoing the second floor, at least not the part where we store things, but the other part. But it's not really, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that the bathrooms would be the upgrade, maybe getting new flooring, but yeah. The kitchen. Yeah. Because they're historic and they are used, and then the kitchen is pretty sad. We could get some new ovens, but I don't know if we would want to totally remodel it.
How much does it get used?
It gets used, right now, the only things that rent the carriage house currently are classes and a meeting on Sundays. And then sometimes when it's better weather or other types of the year, people rent it out as part of the North Meadow. And then also people just rent it out. Sometimes they like the rustic quality of it and they rent it out for an event or a party.
Yeah,
I'd say the bathroom, carriage house needs to be done.
It's the main, yes, yeah.
ADA.
Yeah, ADA.
Yeah. Didn't we have a committee that looked at that?
yeah.
They did.
Yeah, I think you were on,
I
you weren't
wasn't-
on that one?
No,
Okay.
because that's why I was asking.
Oh,
what are
okay.
the-
Yeah, I know we had a
Somebody
bathroom.
A bathroom. Oh, maybe that was the bathroom of Jennings.
Yeah, could have been.
Yeah.
Well, we're experts on bathroom now. We should-
Yeah. That was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, we could look at it again.
Yeah, Matt Baker and
Say maybe not.
somebody else was on the committee for the bathroom who both are no longer on this committee. So we would probably have to start all over with a new committee.
Would it make
So-
sense to distribute this with updates as to what's been done and what hasn't been done?
Yes, I can do that. So I can send that out to you because then you'll understand like what's left. That's part of the master plan. The PDF of the master plan, I'm not sure if I could email that out, but if you don't have a copy and you want a copy, I can figure out a way to get that.
Yeah, there's a link on our Park and Rec.
There's a
website.
link, yeah, I'll send out the link.
Great.
And then you can look up, it will go into detail every one of these projects in the plan.
Yeah, oh, very much.
So can you get an estimate of what it would cost to replace the portion of the asphalt pathway that's not being used?
Yeah.
Probably just know what the total cost.
All right, so that it can be budgeted or down the line, yeah.
Sally, the other thing is there's one item here near the end about site furnishing, additional benches, trash containers, repaired drinking fountain, new signage and repairs. Is that necessary to actually be specifically approved or can't that come out of the current budget for the park?
I'm assuming this would just be for overall, so when they did the park master plan, probably overall, everything needed to be updated. So I don't think it needs to be a capital improvement project, but if we wanted to do all of the benches and all of the tables and all of everything new, we would probably just do it all together. But if we're just doing it here and there, we don't need it
Okay.
as a capital.
Reason I mention that, because I've taken people over there, and the one comment they make is, on warm days, particularly nice days, there's not any benches in behind the school, that whole stretch there. It's a beautiful stretch to sit on, but you can't sit on.
Yeah.
And we do have, of course, a program for people donating benches,
Right.
subject to your placing them. But, you know, that we can't rely on that, I think.
We need
And
more
particularly,
donations of
and
benches.
also there's a bench issue. Look at all the benches here.
Yeah.
There's nothing out here that looks like anything we have in the park.
I know, well, that's on purpose.
Yeah, well, and I think, I frankly agree with the way they look in the park. And I agree with the ones that look here.
Yeah.
They're just different usage. But anyway, that would, and the drinking fountain's kind of funny, the one by the tennis court. And we should have more, I think. And of course, the dog stuff, we have to have places for that to be dumped. So I think there's really a role for
You mean
this.
just trash cans, or you mean the baggy stations?
Well, they kind of have two, don't they? I mean, typically, hopefully, you could have one in the other or both. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe what I'm hearing is that maybe we all need some time to think about how we want to, prioritize things, and we'll come back to the maybe next month, and then we'll talk about it and see if we can conglomerate all those ideas together into a prioritized list.
Sally?
I'm not sure. Well, can I find it on the website? Oh, wait, yeah. Okay. I'm not sure when that is, but it would be good to know when that goes. I think it goes in a month or two, so.
Yeah, so if we make a recommendation at
the
next month,
meeting,
is that
we
enough
should
time?
Still be fine, yeah.
Should still be fine, okay.
Well, we will discuss the CIP at the council, I'm pretty sure it's next month, but that's 2 months before we approve the final budget, so there's time to integrate that.
Yeah.
But just for my note, what I hear has been brought up and added to this is the pathway, the need for additional benches, different places for people to sit, the bathrooms in the carriage house.
Event garden.
So that's.
They're already doing that.
That's
That's already being done.
Okay.
Well, they're doing part of it. They're only doing part. So.
Yeah, that won't be a capital improvement fund. It's a separate.
In the current year's budget.
It will be coming, actually, it will be coming to either this month or the following month city council meeting. It's not really budgeted. So we're asking we're asking council for the money for it.
North lawn parking lot drainage.
What's that?
The North lawn parking lot drainage.
Yeah.
It floods every.
One that that's between the North Lawn and the Gilmore House.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's going to be completely redone.
For the circulation.
Yeah.
The circulation plan will fix the drainage problem.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Perfect.
Supposed to.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
Would you remind me, Sally, what was the plan to relocate the corporation yard? Where was it
So
supposed to go?
The idea, you'll see on the map when I send it out, but the idea was that the play school would move over to the close to the Gilmore House.
Yeah.
That would open up more parking, and then the courtyard, they just felt it needed to be in a better location. So that was also going to move closer to the Gilmore House.
But the play schools,
that area.
the play school's future is a little bit in doubt.
And I also don't think, what I know of a few years ago is that we're not gonna spend the money to move the play school. When she's done with the play school, council can decide, but we're probably not gonna do anything. We're gonna get rid of those buildings and use that as parking, or another idea that comes up. Yeah.
There was a discussion when we started designing the town center of including in the town center project courtyard over here. The only way that we could do that is to move this courtyard into the a regular basis for road maintenance. So it was determined that it didn't make any sense to move that equipment to their location in the park. Because it needs to have easier access to the street. It was in the middle of the park where the courtyard is in the park. Then you'd have this heavy equipment running through the park, and that would be a mess. So it was looked at whether we should move the two courtyards and combine them in the backyard of what is now Gilmore House. That was considered and decided against, which left the courtyard here, as not part of the town center project, and the courtyard there as existing park. And the only, to my knowledge, consideration of changing that courtyard, there was some, and it could be a capital improvement project if you wanted to recommend it, there's some consideration of redoing the courtyard of the park, rebuilding the little metal building, and reorganizing the area within the fenced-in area behind the metal building. But there's been no, it's not part of the master plan, and I just didn't know.
Quite an eyesore.
Are both courtyards in poor shape? Are both courtyards in poor shape, or are they in good condition?
They seem adequate. You could claim them to be, depending on your perspective, in poor shape and in good condition. I think it would be more of a stretch to say that they're in good condition. Okay. But they're both older buildings that seem like they're not currently a problem. Okay. But if you, I don't know if you've walked through the courtyard in the park, actually gone through the building.
No, I've just seen it from the outside. It doesn't look in great shape.
Yeah.
Okay.
An eyesore with
I
all
think for the people that work in it, they know where things are.
Okay.
So it's probably kind of like your gardening shed.
Yeah.
Everything like mine is kind of a mess, but I know where everything is.
And Sally, I know we have a new and future planned projects that's always on your monthly list. I don't know if we want to include those, or I don't know if staff feels those are higher priority.
Which ones are you talking about?
Converting playground restrooms from well to potable water, repairing the header boards on Jennings Pavilion.
Yeah, the header boards wouldn't be, but maybe the
well water.
Yeah, well water, to get the bathrooms off the well water.
Okay.
Because when we have problems with the well, then we have to shut down those bathrooms. So it makes sense just to have that be city water.
Yeah.
For $5,000 or whatever the quote was, but.
Yeah. Okay. I thought of another one.
Okay.
Maybe an improvement on the tennis court. Perhaps the clay court could be
Yeah.
something done with it.
Also, a sound wall there would be something to look at.
Or just, clay to hardcore.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Has that been determined that the clay court's not repairable? I mean,
Round and round because somebody donated it.
I know.
But
I'm just trying to figure out what can we do?
There are a lot of people who feel like it doesn't get used enough, and why don't we convert it to something, particularly with all this discussion about the tennis court usage? Why not seriously look at covering it, making it a hard court?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It seems to be.
Go ahead, Trish.
Oh, I was going to say, I remember in another meeting, one of us said that it was not usable. I mean, it just wasn't usable as a clay court. There was some problem with the construction. So that's the issue I've never understood, because there's an issue of use, but that wasn't the issue that was first brought up. It was that it was actually engineered improperly, and so it didn't work.
We luckily have a.
That's really not accurate. It's not that it was engineered improperly. It's that the watering system that was used to manage it, which is required on a regular basis for clay court, is almost non-functional because it gets so much sediment.
Okay.
And it clogged up the pipe so that the irrigation mechanism, which is under the clay court, fails.
Yeah.
And so it's not exactly a care issue, it's the system wasn't proper because of the well water. And Bob can correct that. Bob knows more about it than I
So we'd have to repair that entirely for it to be usable, is that?
It won't be usable as long as we're using well water on that court.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
If we wanted to really make the clay court functional, and again, Bob can comment, I think we have to rip it up and replace the irrigation. Or, yeah.
Wow.
If you're gonna do that,
Yeah, let's
make it a hard court.
Bob, did you want to add anything?
No, it's not usable. It's not usable from the first day from the under the sand watering. Then we put in filters to filter the water before it reached the court. That didn't work either because the filters clogged up. So basically, we don't know how to manage a clay court with water that comes from the ground.
Okay.
So we don't know how to.
And as far as the question on usability, Michael tells me it is usable, but only for little kids where you throw the ball to them, they're 10 feet away and they knock it over. But otherwise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, again, the issue that
donation aspect, is there any,
yeah.
I mean, what kind of, yeah, whatever.
I think as we've discussed this multiple times on the committee, and the last time that I recall it discussed, somebody reached out to the donor. And I don't remember, was that you or before you?
That was before me.
And we have the right to do anything we want in the agreement we have. We retain the right to do whatever we want. We have 100% decision over what we do. So, and she had done it for her daughter, I believe, who was a very serious tennis player, and his daughter.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's okay. I just didn't know if there was any philosophical or.
Yeah, Michael reached out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did, but I don't know that he ever reported back.
I don't remember hearing about it.
We can talk to him next month.
Do you remember, Sally? Did he actually say there was a woman he talked to?
Yeah. We didn't get any feedback from her.
Okay.
And a tentative one may be pickleball courts, depending on the trial. So, Trish or Bob, did you have any projects you wanted to preliminarily prioritize? And we'll take a further look next month in depth.
What I've been told is the court is not fixable for less than $100,000 or something above that.
Yeah.
I have no additional, it does, yeah, that's a real problem for that court. But I have no other capital projects to put in.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll email out in the next few days this updated with a link to the master plan so that at the next meeting you can give a recommendation on capital improvement projects.
Okay. Thank you, Sally.
Yeah.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 possible things with
playground. Do you have? Yeah.
And you can add to it.
Okay.
What I have is a pathway replacement, more benches, bathrooms in the carriage house, the event garden, converting the play yard bathroom, replacing the play yard equipment, replacing the play court, and
Do we that handball thing, is that
that was, I think
we
you
need
mentioned.
to get rid of it, clean it up, or I don't know.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that too. That's not used. That the backboard is in terrible shape. The concrete is in terrible shape. I know somebody said that it sometimes gets used, but if you look at it, I mean, you could trip on the crevices in the asphalt, and it just seems like that space could be used for something, particularly as we look at.
Well, I went over and measured it and had my nephew, who's a contractor, look at building pickleball courts there. If we, this is long before I knew the other court, the dirt court was going to go away, maybe that would be usable We could convert that, should that be an issue? That was a project that the foundation was considering doing. I was gonna propose the foundation. I won't say the foundation was considering it because they haven't heard my proposal yet, but I'm considering it. So
I don't think there's nearly enough funding in the
That's
foundation.
something.
pretty close.
It's wasted space.
Heard
It's
the
another
$100,000.
eyesore in the park.
But no, tear it
Yeah,
down.
I'd like to ask Michael
How
about
about the-
how much he sees the usage. I do see people using it on occasion, but mostly as an area for stretching or kind of, because it's
I
got that.
tried
flex.
to use it once. Tennis.
It is a town reliability issue.
Okay. Okay. So it's another thing to look at too. So
Wrote that down in the notes.
okay, if there's nothing else, why don't we move on to 5D, I think is our next one. Or, no, I'm sorry, 5C.
5C,
Yeah, 5C.
5D.
Updates on prioritized park projects and goals.
So like I said, the circulation will be going to the regular council meeting this month to go out to bid. Pickleball, that should be going to hopefully the regular council meeting, the survey. Should be hopefully going to the regular council meeting this month for the council to approve, and then it can be sent out. And then Brightview, they came last time. I don't know if you need any updates on that.
I'm sorry, Sally, what did you say about the survey? It's being prepared by staff now?
No, the survey would be going to hopefully the regular meeting, council meeting this month. So not next Wednesday, the following Wednesday, for them to approve the survey for staff to send out.
Yeah, but I was asking, what is going to the council? Remember,
I
staff
prepared a
was going
staff
to
report.
work on a
So
new survey.
I prepared a staff report for council, and in that is the survey with the edits in there for council to review. And it gives the background of how we got to that point and how we're gonna send it out. So council can discuss it and they can decide if that's the survey they want and if it can be sent out.
Is that the third Wednesday?
Third Wednesday, yeah.
Next Wednesday.
Once it's on the agenda, I can email it out to everybody. So if you want to join the meeting, you can.
Is it possible to get the survey that's going to be sent out? When will we be able to access that, the edited survey?
It's now access.
Pardon me?
There's no access to it in the documents that it was sent out by Sally,
Oh
correct?
yeah, I sent out an email with the survey on it.
Right.
Just
Okay.
letting you know, and also it will be part of the staff report, but it's not, the staff report hasn't been approved yet, so. But once it's online, I will email you a link to the survey.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the prioritized projects? None? Okay. Well, we'll move on to 5D, Gilmore House Housing Update by Council. Or not to put you on the spot, Rick, but
Yeah, that's on you.
I can give the update, what I know, but you were directly involved in the discussions.
So submitted, that certified and submitted the housing element to the state, on January 31st. I don't know exactly when the state received it, but the state has 60 days to review it, and they will take every 60 days. So that they're so far behind is almost unconscionable. So I expect that they will get back to us for the end of the first week of April. In consideration of that and of the likelihood that they won't approve what we submitted, the council had a discussion last month about the housing element, and there were 3 specific things that came up that had been recommended by the Atherton Housing Coalition and people in a letter to the council. And those 3 housing locations that they recommended we look at for multifamily housing were the house next to the Almond Grove Fire Station, owned by the Menlo Park Protection Agency. The courtyard here, you wouldn't, unless that courtyard was moved into a park, you wouldn't replace the courtyard, but theoretically you could rebuild the building and put housing on top of whatever you had underneath. And third, replace the Gilmore House with multifamily housing in the park. The Gilmore House sits on approximately 1 acre, including the land that's fenced off around the Gilmore House. And the deed that granted Atherton the opportunity to obtain the park explicitly said that the park had to be used as a, quote, high-class recreational park, end quote. And it expressly said that means it cannot be used for housing. I think housing wasn't the only thing identified, other than incidental. And it was, the park was deeded to the town in 1958, but Olive Palmer's husband had a life estate through the park, and he died, I believe, in 1962, at which point the town had to make its decision about whether or not to take the park, and the town obviously decided to take the park. The issue of what constitutes incidental use housing is a legal issue. It's never been tested, because notwithstanding that the Gilmore House was given to Atherton a couple years after Atherton decided to take the park, it was never tested whether the Gilmore House was incidental. But I suppose one housing unit where the person that lives in that house on every occasion has been the park manager is probably incidental. But whether replacing that house with multifamily housing is incidental or not is something that could easily be tested by someone who wouldn't want there to be more housing put into the park. The Housing Coalition letter recommended that there be, can't remember if it was 6 to 12 or 4 to 10 units, but I think it was 6 to 12. There was a certain number of townhouse units that theoretically would be built on that 1 acre, and that acre would be more severely fenced off from the rest of the park than it is right now. And a separate, whether it happens or not is a fair question, but a separate entrance to that unit would be built. This has not been discussed by the council. This was just proposed in the Housing Coalition letter, and the council will formally discuss it for the first time in 2 weeks at our March meeting, where we're going to discuss all 3 of those housing sites suggested in the Housing Coalition letter. So the council hasn't had a formal discussion about replacing the Gilmore House with townhouses. There has been comment and discussion of that over time as the council has reviewed the housing element, but it was only when it came up in the Housing Coalition letter after the council had submitted the housing element and certified the housing element that we decided that that was a serious enough request that the staff should notify everyone that lives within 500 feet of Gilmore House of the possibility of considering putting townhouses on the Gilmore House property. And that was done. So that was done with notice that that would be discussed on March 15th.
Yeah, and the city manager also put out a newsletter in which he says the Gilmore House will be discussed too.
He just did that.
Yeah.
Who put it out?
The city manager.
Oh,
yeah. He has a monthly report that he sends out.
Sure. Yeah. Didn't the city manager in years past live in that house?
Yeah.
That's what it was for, as I remember. Then George.
or the town, or the park manager at one point. Well, Cliff Freegang was the actual park manager when it was first there. He lived about 7 years.
Subsequent to that, the city manager, like right now, the chief of police lives there, and he was deemed by the council to be the park manager.
Not Sally.
And that was because George couldn't do that. I remember you negotiated his contract. He said, I can't do it. I have to go back to Marin or something.
Yeah, no, he was offered the house,
Right.
but he chose not to use it.
He didn't take it.
What is the condition of the house? Is it something that will last? It's pretty good. Okay.
It's a 3 and 2.
Yep.
That
Okay.
house. It's in quite good condition and the town has kept it up.
Okay.
So anytime something was needed on the house or on the immediate property, including there's a swimming pool there and whatnot, the town has.
Okay.
taken care of. So I'd say it's in very good condition.
Rick, will there be more pressure to try to involve that, given the other two suggestions that were explored, which was putting housing on Selby Lane School and putting housing where the fire station owns on Almondral, both of which seem to have been tanked quite quickly from what I read.
Not Selby Lane School. The two that were recommended in the Housing Coalition letter were the house next to the Almondral Fire Station and the courtyard.
Right.
And those in the council's discussion of that letter in February decided they weren't serious enough to notify the neighbors. The issue of Selby Lane School came up, but that is that was proposed to put or to consider housing on the acre plus unit that's at the back of Selby Lane School, which is currently in unincorporated San Mateo County, not in Appleton. So it's not something that has been considered.
Well,
So given that, isn't the conclusion, those are probably unrealistic to explore, and the pressure from HCD will be multi-unit housing, because we will end up with 23 Oak, and that's it. And
There could be more, but yes, but
Well-
HCD would like us to get rid of single-family residence, period.
yeah, well, and have some multi. Yeah.
And replace all single-family residents with multi-family residents.
Yeah, just to further tell the story, this issue came up when there was a vote. I don't know how many of you lived here then, but there was a vote to put the new library in the park. Big, spacious, wonderful spot and so on. And that was actually submitted to the voters of this city and they voted it down. But in doing that, they had to get an opinion, legal opinion on could they do that given the reversion to Stanford. So it was explored in great detail. That was different because you see, there was no housing.
Yeah.
So it didn't actually, and could it be incidental to the park? Well, the conclusion was probably, but there were all kinds of ways out there to attack it at that point. And they were sort of spread right out for everybody to know. And then there's another question about whether the Stanford reversion even exists now, because supposedly they were supposed to register something along the way to have that right. So it's a very complicated issue. But
and does it last in perpetuity where it's like forever?
that's a very good question, whether it lasts in perpetuity. There's actually a rule against that, generally in the law.
Yeah, I mean, you can't hold something as you're dead forever and ever.
Yeah, well, where would it go if Stanford can't get it? Because there's still be an attack on it. Even if Stanford couldn't get it, you could still attack it.
Yeah.
And not only that, but of course, I hope people would look at the intent of Palmer to give it. It was her place. So anyway, it's rather interesting issue. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions on this topic? Yeah, seeing none. Thank you. Thank you, Rick, for the update. Why don't we move on to number 7? So foundation report.
I'm gonna let Walt speak on behalf of the foundation.
So there was one meeting after we had our meeting last time. There was the primary issue of discussion was the one that Sally asked the foundation to consider, and that was, should there be any changes to the event garden proposal? And there was quite a detailed proposal done by, actually spearheaded by one of our people who's a PhD engineer. And he wrote those to Sally in great detail, gave attachments and so on. And Sally has discussed those, I think, but has not heard back on whether they'll be done. The basic things were, look, if you're going to get in there and change the irrigation and you're going to change the way the soil is, get in there and really put a lot of amendment in there. That didn't look like it was being proposed to us. And again, you'll remember we at the foundation, we have a personal issue in this because we paid for it to start with. So anyway, that was the main issue of discussion. The other issue or the other point was the foundation has sent out a letter to everybody in the town asking them to re-up to be members of the foundation, which I hope everyone on this meeting has done or will do, because as you know, the foundation's the only outfit that does anything for this park by way of any kind of capital improvements. And so that we're trying to rejuvenate that. But the event garden is the main concern that we have at this point. And so I'm hoping that Brightview will accept our suggestions and move ahead, and sooner rather than later, I hope.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the committee? Okay, let's move on to, thank you, Walt. Let's move on to 7B.
So in your packet, you have the parks going on report. You have the calendar for March, and you have the financial reports. So
is the water heater included as an unanticipated cost? How much was
that?
that?
Would just be under our budget. This is our regular budget park maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even though it's unanticipated.
Yeah, we kind of put anything that's unanticipated into the park's maintenance.
Okay.
It's more of this, if something breaks, we use that budget.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have any questions on anything?
Would you explain again who is using the carriage house? I see both the spiritual meeting on Sunday you mentioned, but
Yep.
then it looks like all theater games is there.
It's a class that meets there. It's with kids. They do like theater stuff. We used to have a class that met in there that did dancing, that they didn't come back this year. So right now it's only the Sunday meeting and then the class that's 2 times a week.
The theater games.
Yeah, and that's all we've had in there.
The revenue seems to be down for December, January, and February. Is it?
Well, I think it's because of the weather.
Just because of the
Yeah.
wet weather? Okay.
It seems like it's picking up a little more, but yeah.
Oh, I just see the July through October is, in the 10 to 20K, and then it drops to 7.5 and 2, and only 150 in January, 3,000.
I can see why.
I mean,
Pretty bad weather.
Yeah, it has been
Yeah.
pretty bad weather. Yeah. Although there's still an inside venue, so people would.
There are, but if you want to muck your way in there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But I assume, Sally, this is kind of a low side anyway, isn't
Yeah,
it?
this is usually this time is low anyway. Yeah, April, May, and then the summer gets a lot more busier.
Okay.
Do we have a budget, like, is there a fiscal year to date budget or is the budget just the lump sum for the year?
Are you meaning if there's different line items?
Well,
For our
for
budget?
instance, I'm just looking at program revenue. So fiscal year to date, we have for social fees and revenues, 55.7. And I can see that it's 62% of budget, but that's 62% of the full year or 62% of what we expected it to be at this point.
I think it's 62% of the full year.
That's
It's
what I
for the
think.
full year, yes.
Right. So I guess the question that I always, when I'm looking at these kinds of income statements or companies I work with, what's helpful is to know, are we ahead or behind? And it's kind of hard to tell without having what is our budget. If we do happen to, budget to like what we should be at the end of February.
Can't you figure that out very easily?
No, because unless everything is linear, but that's not.
I see.
Oh, I see. Because they do have
we,
the,
we just discussed the nonlinear expense, so our nonlinear revenue. So that's what I'm trying to.
that's hard.
But I don't know if we do that. That's why I'm just
sure. I can check with finance.
Yeah, it would just be helpful if we do for those nonlinear.
Yeah, because sometimes it's very lumpy, like the tennis court.
Or we know
renovation.
we have, I remember the gentleman telling us like our fees for union or whatever it was, like all gets lumped in. There's some big personnel fee that happens maybe once a year or something.
Yeah.
It's not, and so that will look really weird. But it's actually 100% normal.
Yeah. I think that was Robert,
Robert,
the budget. He's our finance director. Yeah, who.
So if we do have it, but
Okay.
if I'll just bring it up.
Okay. If there are no other comments, why don't we go on to 7B? Are there any individual committee member comments or reports?
Could I have a question of Sally, having just met Tony, would it be a good idea for him to sit through these meetings?
Yes.
I mean,
would be.
how's he gonna trail you if doesn't have the background?
Right. Yeah. I still don't have a deadline on when this will happen. I was assuming it would happen soon, but it seems like not. So he should definitely come to the next meeting, which leads me to tell you that if Rick is available, the April meeting, we usually have the landscape walkthrough, which I would definitely have Tony join us for that, because then he's going to be the one taking care of all the problems that we find. But yeah, he should definitely be at this meeting. He has to be trained up, and I was planning on having him attend the next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, so next meeting will start a little early, like 5:30.
So if we do the walkthrough, Rick, do you know if you can be available at the 5:15 for the next meeting? I know you have the study session. This is April, the
5.
first Wednesday of April.
Yeah, April 5.
April 5.
I'm here.
Okay.
I try to move the council meeting up.
Okay. You want me to send you a reminder?
No.
Okay. So next meeting will be, if we want to meet at 5 or 5:15, we would meet at the park, and then we would walk through, and we're just looking at the landscape areas.
Okay.
We
So-
will have the benefit of daylight savings time, so.
Yeah. So,
Tough, yeah.
yeah. So that will be, let's say, if everybody can be there at 5, or whoever can be there, can we do 5?
5 on the 5th.
Yeah. And then we will meet back here at 6:30.
Okay.
And that's not the buildings, but
That will be.
I can do 5:15. I'm sorry, I have something till 5.
So, do we want to just do 5:15?
That's fine.
Is that, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
We'll do 5:15 at the park, and then you'll come back here and I will get pizzas or something, so that if you don't have time to rush home to eat something, we
You can pick up something at Selby's, maybe.
yeah.
Well, Rick said 31.5 million.
I know.
Right.
I know, we can do better than pizza now.
that's the landscape.
That's the landscape walkthrough, yeah.
Okay, so that's an adjustment for next time. It'd be instead of 6:30, 5:15 at the park. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Bet right here.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. See you next
So
month.
we'll be meeting on.
Thank you.
my Father's 107th birthday. His birthday was the 5th. He was born right over here, so.
And how long do you know?
He was only 64 when he died. He had heart condition. But 3 of his brothers lived to be 94, 96, and 97.
The genes were there, but he,
Yep, but he had a, congenital heart problem when he was